Phase 4 of SoD is here, and it is finally time to meet Big Daddy Ragnaros. We're going to have a look today at how we can play a Restoration Druid at level 60 in Phase 4. Looking first at the stat priority we're going to want, the first and top priority is, of course, spell healing. This is a really interesting one, especially as Druids have a lot more instant cast spells than other classes. Why is that, however? Well, spell healing and spell damage, it actually both works the same way, really could do less or more healing depending on how long the cast of the spell is. You can imagine it as if you'd say, imagine it was equal on a 3-second cast versus an instant spell. The instant spell will be massively overpowered. Therefore, an instant cast spell generally sees about 43% of the benefit. AoE spells, even less. A short cast spell, maybe Healing Touch. In fact, I think that's a bit longer. A short cast time spell would see about 80%, and a long cast time spell will see 100% of the benefit. So you can kind of work it out there, depending on the spells you are using. But we're going to go over that a bit later in the rotation part, so we can see our priority, etc. Don't get too overwhelmed with those kind of calculations. After that, MP5, mana per 5 seconds, pretty self-explanatory, is going to help with our mana. Intellect is another interesting one at number 3 on the priority list here. This significantly increases our mana pool, however, isn't as impactful when we are actually finally raiding, hence why it's a bit lower down the list. After that is Spirit, again, another one for mana. And then lastly, Spell Crit. One thing to mention on Spirit is that you do have to be outside the 5-second rule, where you have to wait for mana regen to start again. However, we do have some talents that are actually going to offset that, meaning we can continue to get our mana back. Or maybe when we're under the effect of our Innovate spell. On Spell Crit, it is only going to affect our direct healing spells, so things like Healing Touch and Regrowth, but that can proc our new rune ability, Living Seed, if we are using it. Now that we've gone through that, though, how are we going to actually use our talents and runes? Well, this is the build I would recommend. I'm not going to go through at a granular detail the exact talents I've chosen, because you may have already watched my videos at Phase 1, 2, and 3 of the process at level 25, 40, and 50. If you haven't and you're still leveling up, make sure to check them out on my channel under those playlists, so you can make sure you're using the right build as you level up. Some of the important ones here are Insect Swarm. Although you may be thinking that's a DPS spell, if we go down into the Gift of Nature, this talent, which actually obviously follows the Swarm, is going to massively increase our healing done. Regrowth, with the improved Regrowth talent, has a 50% increased critical strike chance. Be aware of that. We've got Swift Mend here, a fantastic spell that I love, consuming a rejuvenation or regrowth effect on your target. So if they've got that effect on them, this will delete it off them, basically, and then instantly heal them equal to the amount of 12 seconds healing of that spell. So imagine you're healing 10 health every second from rejuvenation, and that will then heal 180 health on your Swift Mend. Hopefully that makes sense. Another one is Nature's Swiftness on a 3-minute cooldown. Your next nature spell becomes instant when you use this cooldown. And lastly, Reflection. This allows 15% of your mana regen to continue while you are casting. And that's what I mentioned before regarding the talents when we're looking at Spirit. You can also see we've got some talents over in the balance tree. We've got 5 out of 5 into Improve Wrath, reducing the cast time of it by 0.5 seconds. If you've got a load of downtime, we can cast Wrath and it will be free. More on that in the rune section. We have Omen of Clarity here, which does require 5 out of 5 into natural weapons, which we aren't going to be using. And this gives you a chance to enter a clear casting state, meaning your next healing spell will be free of mana. Apart from that, we're going as Nature's Reach. I like to use this to increase the range of my Wrath. And we have Natural Shapeshifter, reducing the mana cost of shapeshifting if we are using it by 30%. Moving on to the runes. First things first, going from left to right, top to bottom, I like to go with Improved Bark Skin on the Head rune. It is no longer just for you, but actually now castable on allies as well. And you can cast it while shapeshifted. This is a great spell to add some survivability to somebody who may need it, like the tank. Fury of Storm Rage on the chest rune is the one I mentioned regarding Wrath. Reduces the mana cost of Wrath by 100%, and each time you deal damage of Wrath, you have a 12% chance for your next healing touch to be instant and castable in any form. We also can use Wrath while in Tree of Life form. That's another rune we will be taking. So basically, in any downtime, use your Wrath. It's going to be free. We've reduced the cast time again with improved Wrath up here in the talents, and it's going to proc a big old juicy healing touch as well sometimes. For the wrist rune, we're going with Efflorescence, your Swift Mend, which is this one here at the bottom of the Restoration talent tree that we spoke about earlier. This is now going to cause Efflorescence as well, making it even better. This will heal all party members within 15 yards of the Swift Mend's target. So, if you can, do try and prioritise Swift Mend on maybe the tank or melee or wherever people are clustered up together to get the full effect of your Efflorescence. On the hand rune, it's Wild Growth, an AoE or multiple target heal. Not technically AoE, but it's multi-target. On the wrist rune, we're going for Nourish. The way you can basically see this is as a fast version of your healing touch, and I love it. If you already have one of your spells on the target, specifically Rejuvenation, Life Bloom, or Regrowth, it will actually also heal 20% more. So always make sure you have some other healing hots or heal over time spells on your target when you use your Nourish. On the leg rune, we have Life Bloom, reduces the global cooldown on Rejuvenation and Life Bloom abilities, and you gain, of course, the Life Bloom spell. Heals the target over 7 seconds. When it completes its duration, it will instantly heal the target for an extra amount, and we call this its bloom. When it blooms, basically, it's going to do extra healing. And the Druid regains half the cost of the spell. The effect can stack up to 3 times on the same target. How you're going to basically use Life Bloom is in a raid setting, I would use 3 different stacks on different people, or I would use all 3 stacks on the tank. On the foot rune, I go for Survival Instincts, giving us a bit of survivability. When activated, it grants you 30% of your maximum health and increases all non-physical healing you deal by 20% for 20 seconds. Both survivability and extra healing there on that one as a cooldown. You are also, on top of all this, going to regenerate some extra mana while using it. So this is honestly one of the best runes you have in your arsenal. Lastly, the ring runes. I'm going to go for Nature Specialization. That will help with Wrath and your chance to hit with Wrath. And also Defense. Defense skill increased, meaning you're a bit more higher survival. There's nothing else we can really go for with those that are actually going to increase our healing. And therefore Nature with Wrath would be the best option. But how is all of this going to actually come together into the priority of spells or rotation? How are we going to put it into practice in the raiding environment? Unlike some other healers, it's really quite straightforward how we're healing as a Restoration Druid. Wild Growth, whenever 2 or more members are damaged. Players are damaged. Again, it is a multi-person heal. After that, we want to use Efflorescence as much as possible through our Swift Mend. Remember, to use Swift Mend, it is going to need to absorb a regrowth or rejuvenation on the target, and then it'll heal them for 18 seconds worth of those hots. It will also put Efflorescence on that target and the nearby area surrounding them, meaning you can try and keep people grouped up when you're using Swift Mend on them. But let's try and keep that up as much as possible. Then we go on to Life Bloom to deal with minor raid damage, and this is a really interesting one, how we're actually going to utilize this spell. Remember, it runs for 7 seconds, can stack up to 3 times on the same target, and refunds 50% of the mana we use on it. And then it will bloom after the 7 seconds, giving us a massive extra amount of healing on that target. If it is like minor healing on, a target over there and a target over there, I would say put 1 stack on each person, and that will be enough. Whereas if it's like really big, intense healing needed, put 3 stacks on 1 person. Generally, the tank, for example. If there's single target healing to be used, I love to use Nourish. Remember, it's going to do more healing if you have other hots on the target. You can use things like Rejuvenation for that. Again, we've already spoken about Life Bloom on the tank. Using Rejuvenation, you can use. I like to put more minor healing out with Life Bloom, like we've explained. The reason I don't like to use Rejuvenation like a crazy person is because it is very inefficient, meaning the healing done in regards to the mana cost is quite low. So it's a low heal for a high mana cost ratio. Use it, as much as you want, but do be careful with it. Another thing, speaking of mana, is down ranking our healing spells. If you don't want to use Nourish and you want to use your Healing Touch, I would recommend using rank 4 of this instead. Spells from lower levels will actually have a better ratio of healing done from your spell damage, etc. It's a bit of a complex calculation again, but this is kind of how it works. See how you go with your mana and don't be scared to down rank. Generally, other things such as utility spells are really good ones that you can down rank as well, depending on the mana cost. But that is pretty much it for how you're going to play Restoration Druid in this phase that we are now in, at level 60. If you do need any extra help at all, please do consider joining my Patreon. There's a link in the description below. This massively helps a small channel like mine to survive and get these videos out. And I can also give you one-on-one to support in DMs over on Patreon, should you need help with any classes at all, whether it's Resto Druid or others. And speaking of other classes, check out the playlist that will appear here so you can actually see all of them if you are playing them. I have done all classes for this phase of Season of Discovery for you.